Hello, everybody. What's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things Seattle Seahawks, breaking news, rumors, and updates, all of that right here and more. So, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing, man? Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the bell as well for notifications so you don't miss any breaking news alert that we might have for you right here. Brought to you by FanArch. I want to get into today's video. We have our first piece of news in the offseason regarding the draft. We actually have a mock draft that has been released by the legendary Mel Kiper. If you've never heard of Mel Kiper, you've probably seen him. He's the guy on ESPN with the glasses and the big board, and he is the guy when it comes to draft analysis, prospect analysis, draft rankings, mock draft, big boards, all of that. He is the guy. He's the dude. He's been doing that for ESPN at this point, he's been doing it for decades. And one of the most well-respected, highly regarded guys in the industry. So he knows what he's talking about. And he just released his first mock draft of 2025. And I think there are some really exciting things in there. But for the Seahawks specifically, I love his projection of who the Seahawks are going to be drafting. He has the Seahawks taking Missouri's offensive tackle Armand Membou. And I could totally get behind this. If you look at the numbers over to the side of the screen there, Armand Membou, dude was a stud. This is his numbers: 97.7% win rate. Excellent. He played 826 snaps, only 6 losses, and 9 quarterback hurries. If you understand wins and losses, for linemen, essentially a win is when you don't let the defender get past you. A loss is when the defender does get past you. He only let the defender get past him 6 times. That's pretty darn good, if you ask me. 90.4 was his PFF grade, so he graded out well around the board. Definitely better in pass protection than in run protection, so that might be the one area where you're like, maybe the Seahawks want to focus more on the run game. But obviously Geno Smith would benefit so much from having a guy like Membou who could protect him, a guy who could protect him and keep him comfortable in the pocket. I think Geno would absolutely love to have Armand Membou on this team. And it would make a lot of sense. Now, I think if we drafted him, you'd probably be slotting him in at guard, not at tackle, because we kind of have our tackles set. Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, assuming they stay healthy, are probably going to be the tackles. So I think he might actually slot in at guard. But that's fine, because Mel Kiper understands he can do it all. I want to show you guys what Mel Kiper had to say. According to Mel Kiper, this is the scouting report. He says Membou can play tackle or guard, but Seattle will be fixating on the interior. He's very good in pass protection and shows some pop at the point of attack, and he's experienced with more than 2,000 career snaps. And it's not like those snaps were coming against scrubs either. He was at Missouri. He was playing an SEC level of competition, playing against teams like Alabama, South Carolina, Texas. Those are not scrubs. He's playing against some of the best defenders in college football, and not only did he hold his own, he dominated. I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with. Mel Kiper understands this. He's a smart guy, and I love where his head's at in terms of who he thinks the Seahawks to draft, especially if the Seahawks end up going in the direction that they are supposedly going to go in. If they do end up hiring Hank Fraley to be their next offensive coordinator, it would make a lot of sense to continue focusing on the offensive line. Hank Fraley, if you guys haven't heard, he's the Lions' offensive line coach, and he is currently reportedly the front runner to be the next Seahawks offensive coordinator. So I think that could be a perfect fit. If you're bringing in him to run the offense, you got to help him out by bringing in a really, really good offensive lineman. This is the scouting report according to A to Z Sports, and again, there's a lot to love here. According to AJ Schultz of A to Z Sports, I don't think it's hyperbole to say Armand Membou has the most enjoyable film of the entire offensive line class. He frequently buries defenders with his power, delivering punishing body blow after body blow as the game goes on. And I love to hear that. I love to hear body blow after body blow. He's a punisher. He buries defenders. I love that. That is maybe the best thing you can hear about an offensive lineman. And according to Schultz, that's not hyperbole. That's legit. I mean, when you look at teams like the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Rams, the Cowboys, these teams that have had really great, really impressive, sustained runs of success over the past decade, past 2 decades, what do they have in common? They all have great offensive lines, and what they are able to do is they're able to really push you around and punish you. And I think that's what the Seahawks need. They need a punisher. They need a guy who can tell opposing defenses, back away from our quarterback, back away from Geno Smith, because not only does that protect Geno, not only does it help him stay calm in the pocket, stay calm under pressure, it also just tires the defense out. It makes them pay, and eventually it's going to open up more opportunities for your offense. If you have a guy on the line who can just be a punisher, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So I am all for drafting Armin Membu, but I do have a couple of things I want to get to when it comes to Membu, specifically if the Seahawks would actually be willing to draft him when it comes to John Schneider. So as you guys know, John Schneider is the Seahawks general manager, and he's made it pretty clear both in his actions and in his words that he thinks offensive linemen are overvalued. He thinks they're overdrafted, and he thinks they're overpaid. And I think that there's a lesson to be learned there. If you look at who has he drafted? He's always focused in the first round on defense and offensive skill players. And I think that my fear with Schneider is that he will do the same thing. He will pass on Armin Membu and draft somebody else who's maybe more of an offensive skill player or somebody who is on the defense. Because John Schneider, he's made it very clear. He doesn't want to pay offensive linemen more than he thinks they're worth, and he doesn't want to draft an offensive lineman higher than he thinks they are valued. And while that might be a mistake, I tend to think it is, that's his philosophy. His philosophy is that he doesn't want to overpay or overdraft on a lineman. So, here's what I'm worried about, and here's what Mel Kiper has. Because in Mel Kiper's mock draft, obviously he has the Seahawks taking Armin Membu at number 18, which is where they are slated to draft. Of course, they could trade up, they could also trade down, and they do love to trade down, so maybe they'll trade down, I don't know. But if they stay at 18, Mel Kiper, guess who he has going at number 19? It's Ashton Jeanty, Boise State's star running back, the Heisman runner-up, Ashton Jeanty. That is the guy who Mel Kiper has going number 19. So my question that I'm not sure if I know the answer to, but I'm worried that I do, is that would John Schneider pass on the opportunity to draft Ashton Jeanty and instead draft Armin Membu? Look at the numbers for Jeanty. Tell me that's not generational. 185.8 yards per game. 25 runs of 20 or more yards. 7 yards per attempt. 29 touchdowns. And 2,600 rushing yards. Probably should have won the Heisman with those numbers, if we're being honest. Ashton Jeanty had a phenomenal season. I mean, he had an absolutely phenomenal season. And the idea that John Schneider would look at Jeanty and say, nah, I'll pass, I don't believe it. I don't think John Schneider can help himself when he sees a generational running back. And that's not to say that Armin Membu is not also generational, because I think Armin Membu absolutely is generational. I think these guys are both have a great opportunity to be phenomenal players, Pro Bowl level players. But I think looking back at what he has done in the past indicates that John Schneider would prefer to draft a star running back in the first round than a star lineman in the first round. Personally, I'd go with Membu for a couple reasons. First off, because I really want to focus on the O-line, and I really want to have that punishing presence on the line. But second off, because we already have 2 good running backs, right? We already have Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. But I seem to think that that's not going to stop John Schneider. If Jeanty is there at 18, I think Schneider would take him. I don't think he can help it. I think he loves offensive skill players, and I think Ashton Jeanty would be I do think he'd be a good fit. I wouldn't complain about Ashton Jeanty. I want to make that very clear. But I would rather the Seahawks focus on the line and take a guy like Armin Membu. So that is my pick. That's who I would take. So I do agree with Mel Kiper on his first mock draft, but I want to know what you guys think. As always, guys, let me know down in the comments. Do you want the Seahawks to draft Armin Membu, or do you want to go in a different direction? And do you think John Schneider actually would take Armin Membu, or do you think he would go in a different, maybe more of an offensive skill player or a defensive leaning position So I want to hear what you guys think on this. I'm very curious to know. So as always, guys, let me know down in the comments. And, of course, until next time, go Seahawks.